After 7 p.m., this street doesn't belong to humans anymore. People say anyone who walks through it at night never comes back. Last night, a girl made one small mistake. She took a shortcut. She heard footsteps right behind her. When she turned around, there was no one there. But when she checked her phone camera, her screen...
Chapter 6. The Collapse. 3 days passed. Ryan fell into a routine. Work during the day, watch the clock as 7 approached, seal everything and stay inside. Try to sleep, fail mostly, work again. The nightmares came every night, but he was starting to be able to shake them off faster. He told himself they were just anxiety, just stress, just his brain adjusting to a new place. On the 4th evening, he made coffee around 6:45, opened his laptop to finish some work, and stepped toward the balcony door to check the view. He forgot to latch it. Just forgot, didn't even notice. He sat down at his desk, headphones in, working. At exactly 7:04 p.m., it began. First, the pressure, deep in his chest, sudden and total, like something had reached inside him and closed a fist around his lungs. He sat up straight and pulled his headphones out. Then, the room seemed to tilt, slightly at first, then more. His vision doubled, then smeared like someone was dragging a wet brush across his eyes. He stood up from the chair. Wrong decision. The moment he was upright, the vertigo hit him like a wall, and he grabbed the desk to stay on his feet. His coffee mug slid off the edge of the desk and exploded on the floor. The sound seemed to come from miles away. Then the ringing started. Not in one ear, both. A high, pure, terrible tone that built fast, louder and louder and louder.
Chapter 7. The Answer. Morning light. Ryan was on the floor. The coffee mug was shattered beside him. The side of his face was crusted with dried blood from his ear. His head felt like it had been filled with wet concrete overnight. He lay there for a long time before moving. When he finally got up and cleaned himself off and looked in the bathroom mirror, the man looking back at him was pale and hollow-eyed and looked 5 years older than he had a week ago. He went to his laptop and he started searching. Not for ghosts, not for local legends. He'd heard enough legends from Marcus and Joel. He wanted something harder than that. He typed in everything he'd experienced both nights: the chest pressure, the vertigo, the ringing, the visual hallucinations of dark figures, the drop in temperature, the bleeding ears. The first several results talked about panic attacks, about anxiety disorders, about migraines with aura. He kept digging. One result stopped him. Infrasound. Effects on human physiology and perception. He read the whole article. Then he found 3 more and read those too. Infrasound. Sound waves below 20 hertz, completely inaudible to the human ear. Not heard, felt. The human body responds to infrasound in ways the conscious mind isn't aware of. Studies in the 1980s and 90s documented a consistent set of symptoms in test subjects exposed to infrasound below 18 hertz. Chest pressure, vertigo, extreme nausea, visual disturbances, sudden and intense feelings of dread, paranoia, and the overwhelming sensation of an unseen presence in the room. One researcher had famously written, "Exposure to infrasound at specific frequencies produces a reliable and reproducible."
Chapter 8. The Man in the Nice Suit. Marsh arrived at 5:58 p.m. Same silver hair, same easy smile, a nice jacket over a pressed shirt. The kind of man you'd trust to sell you a car or manage your retirement fund. Ryan had his laptop open on the coffee table. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit down." Something in Ryan's voice made Marsh's smile tighten slightly, but he sat. Ryan turned the laptop toward him. The infrasound research articles were open on the screen. "Tell me I'm wrong," Ryan said. Marsh looked at the screen. His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted. A small, almost imperceptible change, like a door quietly closing. "Ryan, the trees around this complex, huge old trees, hollow inside. At 7 p.m., when the temperature drops and the thermal inversion happens, air gets forced through those hollow trunks at a frequency below 20 hertz. The whole complex gets bathed in infrasound. People inside sealed apartments feel a little anxiety, maybe some weird dreams. The walls block most of it. But anyone outside, or anyone with an open window, they get the full wave. Vertigo, bleeding ears, hallucinations." Ryan paused. "Potentially much worse." Marsh was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You're smarter than I expected." Ryan felt the temperature of the room change, not from infrasound this time, just from what those words meant. "You knew," Ryan said. "I've always known." Marsh stood up slowly. He walked to the window and looked out at the tree line. In the late afternoon light, the shadows of the tall trees stretched long across the ground. "My father bought this land 26 years ago," he said. He had spent his entire life building a business. Every dollar he'd ever made, everything, he sank into this property. He was going to develop the whole area, residential, commercial, infrastructure. He had plans drawn up, investors lined up. He was going to turn this into something. He paused. Then the other investors pulled out. The neighboring projects collapsed. The area was reclassified as too remote for commercial development, and my father's land, this land, became worthless overnight. "He lost everything," Ryan said. "Everything. The business, the savings, the house we grew up in, everything. Within 2 years of buying this property, my father was completely bankrupt. He died 18 months after that. Heart failure, the doctors said. It wasn't his heart that killed him. It was this land. And you inherited it. I inherited the debt. I inherited a piece of land that nobody would buy. I came back from overseas for his..."
Chapter 9, 59 seconds. Ryan threw himself sideways off the couch. The vase missed his head by inches and detonated against the wall behind him, exploding into a dozen heavy pieces that scattered across the floor. He hit the ground rolling and came up on his feet. Marsh was already moving, faster than Ryan had expected for a man his age, driven by something desperate and ugly. He grabbed Ryan's shoulder and shoved him hard into the bookshelf. Books avalanched down around them. Ryan planted his feet and drove his elbow back into Marsh's ribs. The older man gasped and his grip loosened. Ryan twisted free. They circled each other in the wreckage of the living room. Overturned coffee table, shattered vase pieces everywhere, books scattered across the floor. Ryan glanced at the clock on the microwave through the kitchen doorway. 6:59. 1 minute. Marsh lunged again. Ryan sidestepped and let the man's momentum carry him and shoved, hard, driving Marsh forward across the living room toward the balcony door. Marsh hit the door with his full weight. The latch, not fully engaged, gave way, and the door swung open, and Marsh stumbled out onto the balcony, catching the railing to stop himself from going over. He turned around, breathing hard, fury and fear both visible on his face now. Ryan looked at him for one long second. Then he stepped back inside and slammed the balcony door shut and threw the latch.
Chapter 10. Morning. At 8 a.m., Ryan opened the balcony door and zip-tied Harold Marsh's wrists together using cable ties from the junk drawer. Marsh was conscious by then, pale, both ears dried, bloodied. His hands were trembling slightly, and his eyes kept losing focus and then finding it again. Ryan had been on the phone since 5 a.m. He'd called a journalist he knew in Chicago, a woman who covered housing and real estate fraud. He'd sent her everything: the infrasound research, the lease agreements, the maintenance records, the death reports, the names of every family currently living in Silver Oak. He'd called the county health department. He'd called the police. By 9:30 a.m., there were 3 police vehicles in the Silver Oak courtyard. By 11 a.m., Harold Marsh was in the back of a police car in handcuffs, not speaking, staring at the floor of the vehicle with the look of a man watching everything finally fall apart in the way it was always eventually going to. By the end of that week, Silver Oak Residences was condemned. Every resident was relocated. Every family was compensated. The 3 deaths were reinvestigated and reclassified. Harold Marsh was charged with fraud, criminal negligence, and 3 counts of manslaughter. The old hollow trees around the property, the ones that had been playing that subsonic note every night for years, the ones that had driven the old man on the 3rd floor to silence and red eyes and whispered warnings, were cut down. And for the first time in 3 years, on a warm evening in late October, when the clock reached 7 p.m., every door in Silver Oak stood open.